you know, I believe that like a brand is a promise of what's to come.
Right.
So when they get in and they experience your brand and that doesn't create a synergy for them, they're not going to go out and continue to be ambassadors on behalf of your brand. And that's the best way in today's day and age is to build a, you know, a solid gold brand is when people are like, they did it right. I came, I experienced, I enjoyed, it was fantastic. Yeah. I'm going to go tell my barber, or you know, who goes to a barber? But you know what I mean. And my nail lady, who knows?
I'm Shaina. I love dogs, I trip a lot, and I happen to have a knack for making pretty sweet videos for businesses. But the more videos we made, the more questions I got about how video and other content can be leveraged to make a bigger impact in their marketing. I mean, 44% of marketers say that producing content is their biggest challenge, yet content marketing is 62% less expensive than outbound and produces 3 times more leads. Now, I know a lot, but I certainly don't know it all, so I made it my mission to talk with content kings, queens, and bosses to learn as much as I could about crushing content marketing, and I'm taking you along with me. Welcome to the Content Coalition. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Coalition. I am here with the gorgeous and amazing Veronique James. She is the founder, CEO of the James Agency in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you for being here
Love
today.
it. Thanks for being here.
So the reason I brought her on, A, is because she's a badass female, and I like those. So here we are talking to each other.
I collect good company. Okay, there you go.
Perfect, I'll take it. And I wanted to talk to her a little bit about content when you're an agency and you have a lot of clients that are similar. You're talking to the same audience. Like, how do you differentiate between content, like what the strategy looks like? Because a lot of people out there have their own businesses and they're creating content for themselves. But when you're creating for multiple companies that are doing kind of the same, similar things at least, like how do you differentiate? You know, how does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so the agency's been around for 15 years, and we really found that we specialize in 4 unique verticals, one being boutique hospitality, so the classic space of like 100 to 200 doors. So great examples locally would be like Hotel Adeline, Mountain Shadows, AC Hotel, Moxie Hotel, right? That very niche, I guess you could say, category. And to your point, you know, they're all within like a 15-mile radius of each other. Right. And generally, they're around the same price point, too. Some are a higher echelon, some are low. And restaurants, too, is one of our categories as well. Both like corporately owned, we deal with the corporate to support the franchise, or we'll work closely with independent family-owned and operated facilities. And so, so when it comes down to content and your marketing, the number one question that we often get from clients is, well, is this a competitor? Right. Are we going to be going to the well too often? And that makes a lot of sense. And I completely understand if you think about that. So a couple challenges. I am certainly not the PPC expert. I know that you interviewed Adam and his team. Yes. When he's amazing. Yeah. And my team could support this. You know, there is definitely a limitation to how much we can do from a PPC perspective with multiple clients, because you essentially are bidding against each other. But when it comes to content and content generation around social or paid social, it really comes down to personification, right? We're looking at who our target audiences are through research, and we use a lot of really cool tools, and we kind of peek behind the curtain to see who are we talking to, what's the cadence of that conversation, and that allows us to define the fact that we're not talking to the same actual people every time. So you think about Mountain Shadows, they have a higher price point than Valley Ho. Granted, they're sister properties, right? They're owned by the same company. And then seasonality of promotions and things like that allows us to make sure that we're not just really tag teaming on all of our clients' efforts. So using research, using soft branding efforts to be able to narrow into who those targets are and be very refined versus casting a really wide net, which is not a very nimble or agile way to spend our clients' dollars, right? And but as an agency, we do make the decision when we do find that there are direct conflicting target audiences. We respectfully decline the opportunity because, you know, we want to make sure that we're not cannibalizing our clients' investment.
Right.
So
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Cannibalizing our clients.
Just gobbling each other up. You know what I mean? It's kind of creepy if you think about it.
So what are some of the tools that you use to look into those
Oh gosh, I mean, we can use everything. Super creepy tools like
it's weird, right?
Oh, it's so
the capabilities blow my mind. It's like Big Brother. But I
way
love
worse,
it.
way worse, honestly, way worse. So our media team will use, and our social insights team will use efforts like PushSpring, which is pretty cool. It will literally extrapolate a persona or who you are as a consumer by looking at your browser history, what your apps are. What's funny is if somebody looked at my phone today, they'd maybe think that I was a 3-year-old because of all the games and things that my daughter is using on my phone. But what's very cool is we can lift that information. Public reports like the census, Google Analytics, of course, to look at competitive traffic and what's happening from feeder markets. And then Nielsen, our team really likes to layer in all of that third-party digital data and then align that with first-party information. So meeting with the client key stakeholders, understanding what their assumptions are, which maybe aren't factual.
Right.
But a lot of times it's great to kind of squeeze that sponge dry of, okay, what do you think your brand is? Who are we talking to? What's really cool about that experience is when there's multiple partners or key stakeholders, sometimes they're not in alignment. Yeah. And so to take their information and then layer over the third-party information from these very specific, creepy tools allows us to create essentially a diagnosis as to where those dollars should be spent. So for a client, that is our very first step in the discovery process, because otherwise you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're hoping it sticks.
Right.
So having the data and the information will allow us to build that critical path, and it's a no-risk value proposition for the client because we have the proven consumer behavior tactics to be able to say, okay, this is where we're going to place our dollars, this is how we're going to communicate to those people, this is how often and when we're going to day part. And then we continue to turn the dials on the campaigns, right, in any facet from PR to creative, whatever we're doing, based on the performance, right? But we're at least starting in a really good place that's allowing us to not be this, what I would consider a guessing game that we used to do back in the day.
Right.
We can literally define exactly who we want to talk to, and then we do it, which is really cool.
That's crazy. The capabilities are incredible now. So based on the different types of clientele that you facilitate, like, are you seeing trends within, like across the different types of clients, or are you seeing trends within just like boutique hotels or restaurants?
I think the biggest trend I'm really seeing, both from corporate large organizations to boutique, independently owned, is everybody is trying to infuse a personality back into their brand. And you're seeing those movements. Virgin did a beautiful job over the last couple years. You're seeing Holiday Inn do it, all the way to smaller clients who have self-reflected over the past year and a half and realizing that with all of these very tender spaces online, which we consider to be the most important part of that brand experience or that brand activation, those multiple touch points, like in travel, it's upwards of 50 to 60 before somebody decides to book a hotel. And what's interesting is there needs to be a sense of connectivity. And I think that with us being consumers and looking to vote with our dollars on something that is kind of like a snack. Travel is a snack. It's not a must-have. It's a nice to do. We need to feel a sentiment or a sense of connection. And so I'm seeing a lot of trends in consumer-specific marketing where people are craving that personality or that brand tone and voice so that they can align their travel objectives or their dining objectives, whatever it may be, with that brand. And so that's why social is so important, right? And all of those consumer-related review sites like TripAdvisor and Yelp, right? You see a lot of the corporate narrative, and then you see the traveler's experience. And if those don't align, then the brand feels very disingenuous. And I think that our target market is so discerning. You're out. They bounce if it doesn't seem like there's an alignment of personality and brand tone through the marketing objectives to what the traveler or maybe what the guest is saying.
You all should know at this point that you have to be repurposing your content. You need to be taking your audio, your blogs, your podcasts, your videos, and turning them into smaller, bite-sized snippets for social media that are video, that have optimized thumbnails, that are images, that say really amazing stats and things that your guests have said. If you're not repurposing your content yet, then you are behind the game. So that is why I created Repurposed House, to literally take this piece of your content game off of your hands and to do it for you. So if you know, which you should know, that you need to be taking all of your existing content that you worked so hard on and probably spent a lot of time and money on, if you know you need to put that out into the world so that it's able to be engaged with in the right way for the right platforms, then you need to sign up for repurposedhouse.com. One low monthly fee gets you as many assets as you can handle to put onto your social media calendar and start driving traffic to all of your lead gen landing pages, websites, blogs, wherever it is that you're taking traffic that actually gets them to convert. So check out the link in the description. We've got a really cool deal for you right there. It's repurposedhouse.com, but make sure you go through the link because you'll get a really cool promo code.
Have you been in a situation with a new client where they haven't established more of like a personality that can resonate?
Yeah, we're like in the thick of it right now. My team just got back, a large bulk of my senior team just got back from the East Coast last week. They were there for 5 days. We've just engaged with this client. They're a large entity where they have co-op dollars from a bunch of other big hospitality brands and some restaurants. And they're somewhat kind of like a CVB or a Convention Visitors Bureau.
Right.
But what's really interesting is they have practiced for 10 years under this entity, and it's a great brand, but it's very structured. It's not very dynamic, well standardized, I would say, but it really lacked the enticement of who are they trying to be? Who are they trying to connect with? And because of that, and because of the trends that we're seeing in consumer behaviors over the last 2 years, their retail occupancy has completely fallen out because I think retailers want to do business where there's that energy and there's that sense of pride, right? And that personality. And also just travelers in general and locals. And so they just did this amazing exercise for 2 days with all the key stakeholders. And what was the most incredible part of that experience is all of them kind of laughed and said, wow, we've never really had this conversation before.
Oh my God.
And they were chuckling that they never thought they would come to an agreement as to what that brand voice should be and what that personality should be. So it was an enlightening experience for the client and then for our team to start creating that alignment and that first party information that I talked about at the top of the interview, right? So you'd be surprised how many companies go very far in their tenuredship of operations and never truly do that discovery as to who they want to be and who they're talking to and how that connection is going to happen.
Yeah. A lot of what we keep talking about, I've interviewed like 95% of the people we've interviewed really make it a huge point to be like, have a story, have a voice that can be personal, because people want to do business with people. And we haven't really talked about like the exercises to get to that. Like if you haven't figured what that is for your business, like for me, we're ridiculous and fun, and like we try to be personable.
And you're unapologetic about it, which is fantastic.
Maybe that's good, maybe that's not. But it is what it is. That's what we've decided to be. Because it's like an extension of me, of Sarah, of the team. So. What kind of exercises, and I think this kind of dives into a question I ask everybody, which is what can somebody do in the next 48 hours that will put them steps ahead of their content game, their branding game, starting today?
There's some really cool things I think that you don't need an agency for. You can put up, I'm sure you could Google this and come up with a bunch of brand questions. What's important first that I'll start with is people need to replace the brand with their personal opinions. So when they're going through that persona discovery, stop thinking about what you think it should be and start thinking about what the brand or the company should be. And that's a hard departure first and foremost. But fun questions like, if your company was a car, what would it be? If you were a book or a genre of music, I mean, you start thinking about questions like that, and you can come up with a pretty decent dossier of what your persona should be based on some of those questions. Another really fun activity is take just a stack of index cards and write out a bunch of adjectives and a bunch of personality words: funny, clever, unapologetic, smart. There's a bunch of things there. So descriptors, personality keywords, and maybe archetype like hero or patriarch. There's a lot of cool things there. And then just stick them on the table. And with your group or your partnership, or if you're a sole proprietor, just start gathering them based on your perception of what the business is, not what your opinion is, right? And maybe pick 10 or 5 from each category, and then look at those that you've selected and group them together. And that should start to create a really solid foundation very quickly as to whom your brand voice should be as an organization.
Sure. Yeah. I think that some people get caught up in how you're saying, obviously take into consideration the people who are going to be communicating with your brand too. But like for me, the unapologetic thing was tough because I was like, well, I don't want to offend anybody, or like,
and it's going to happen.
Maybe I'm goofy
right?
and it's too much, you know.
Totally.
But it's just like at some point, like the people who you want your brand to be what it needs to be,
so that you attract those types of people that you want to work with.
Right.
Right.
And ultimately, it's like, what's the end goal here? Like, do you want to work with a bunch of people that you don't want to be working with in the first place?
Right.
Or, I mean,
I agree. And I also think that's very true in any kind of marketing initiative too. You want to attract the people who want to do business with you and want to vote with their dollars or spend the money, but also that are going to continue to be ambassadors for your brand.
Right.
And if you set up this false pretense of what you're trying to be, boutique hospitality, restaurants, multifamily infill real estate, and they come and they experience the brand because they have this perception from your external marketing communications, and then there's misalignment. Once they get there, you know, I believe that like a brand is a promise of what's to come.
Right.
So when they get in and they experience your brand and that doesn't create a synergy for them, they're not going to go out and continue to be ambassadors on behalf of your brand. And that's the best way in today's day and age is to build a, you know, a solid gold brand is when people are like, they did it right. I came, I experienced, I enjoyed, it was fantastic. Yeah. I'm going to go tell my barber, or who goes to a barber? But you know what I mean, and my nail lady, who knows?
Yeah, right.
But you're right, you know, and you go on the James Agency website and the homepage says no BS. Yeah. And that's one of our biggest ethoses is just, we're not going to bullshit you.
Right.
You know, hopefully I can say that word.
You can say whatever you want to
like,
say.
Bleep. Yeah, 3-second delay, bleep. Yeah, you know, we're just not going to be those people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. Yeah. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Right.
But that means that you're not the right client for us.
Right. Do you want us to bullshit you or do you not want us to bullshit you?
You know, and there are some companies that do that, and that's fine. So I think you hit it on the head, right? And I think you're doing a great job because, you know, your personality of the company is mirroring what your initiatives are. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Is there a campaign that either your team did or that you've seen that you were just like, this is badass. I really like what we're doing.
Well,
here.
I'll tout my team's efforts.
Let's hear it.
Because they are just going so hard and doing such a great job. So we recently brought the Hotel Adeline to market, which is here right across adjacent from Scottsdale Fashion Square. And that's an excellent example of a garden style hotel that used to be the Scottsdale Inn, total eyesore, right? And a company came in and they took a daring kind of leap of faith. And so Hotel Adeline is about, I would say like kind of like a hipster savvy, has a really great kind of underground connection with all of her favorite things. And so when you walk into that hotel, my team has made sure that the brand voice and all the collateral, the site, the logos, like right when you walk in, there's a giant sign that says WTF. And at first glance, you're thinking that means what we're used to, but it's where's the fun, right? And the intention there. So that's a great example from start to finish, brand voice, foundation, graphic standards, marketing communications, where we've taken that soft branded persona and we've really allowed Adeline to shine through all of those efforts. Super proud of my team for that last year.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
From the ground up too. That's exciting. You're not taking an existing brand.
Nope.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Renamed all the cocktails. They originally had kind of a sort of stale suite of cocktail names. Helped them with their speakeasy concept, and you get to walk up to a phone booth and you dial in, and the bartender gives you a secret word. You know, just fun things, right? And so it's really about the experience.
Is Adeline a person?
It's a girl. It's
like an actual girl, or like
it is not actually a girl.
Okay,
so
cool.
The name itself came from one of the principal owners. I think it's niece. We loved the name, and then we created this fictitious woman who I would envision between like 27 and 30, very set in her ways. You know, has a really incredible style and just particular about how she experiences life. You know.
Well, what was so cool about that is I had to ask if it was a real person or not.
Right.
Like that's how it should feel. Like it's an embodiment of somebody.
Yeah. And the grand opening was just that. When you walked in, you had Adeline's favorite cocktail, and then we had a florist making head wreaths, and we had somebody doing henna tattoos because that's what she would do if she partied, right? We had girls in these like big clear bubbles in the pool, so because that was something that she would have loved to have seen. So you can take a personality and carry it through any kind of brand, and it can be something really boring. And I don't want to say like financial advisory companies are boring, but you can infuse a brand through that.
Sure.
You can find opportunities to create that sentiment with your consumer or your target audience, and it doesn't have to be garish. It doesn't have to be kitschy. It can be serious. It can be sentimental. But if you're trying to create that connection, before you even had that conversation with somebody face to face, that's a really great way to do that through marketing communications.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love where this turned because I was
good.
like, I know it's going to be a great conversation. I just wasn't sure where we were going to land.
Well, here you go.
But I love the brand personality and all that, especially coming from you, because like I love what you have done with the James Agency and just seeing like some of the brands that you've worked with.
Thanks. And I think my perspective is maybe a little bit wider because we're an integrated firm. So rather than just being focused in one discipline of PR or paid, social or whatever it may be, we're always looking at that holistic approach. So maybe my perspective of your question reiterated that, because I'm thinking not just creative being the driver position or just the data, but how does it thread its way through an entire content strategy for a client?
Yeah. I mean, really, that's baseline.
Yep.
What are you going to build content around if you don't have the base figured out? Yep. That's awesome. Was there anything else? I mean, I've been schooled. So is there anything else specifically that you think that those folks watching, the world that's watching or listening?
No. I mean, I feel like you could school me on a ton of stuff.
Please.
So I'm just the boss lady that sits in the office and runs the biz now, day to day. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This was amazing. Thank you so much. I really
good.
appreciate it and letting us sit in your gorgeous office. This office is ridiculous. You guys have been in here a year now?
Yeah, just over a year.
So
we celebrated a year anniversary. Thanks. It's so fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Tune in again next week and check out Hotel Adeline. I'm excited to go. Yeah. I live here, so I get to go walk in there and check it out. But check it out.
Truffle fries are off the hook, too.
Truffle fries are a real problem for me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Can't wait. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Content Coalition. Now, whether you're listening or watching, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and to whatever platform you're listening to it on, because you're not going to want to miss out on the incredible things that I'm learning with these amazing content marketing pros. So make sure you subscribe, and we will talk to you next week.